Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Veterinary Business Podcast, your ultimate resource for developing a successful veterinary practice and career. I'm Dr. Amanda Landis Hanna, one of the co-hosts of the Veterinary Business Podcast. On this podcast, we bring you insights and expertise from industry-leading doctors, experts, and thought leaders. We cover a wide range of topics, including practice management, marketing, finance, leadership, HR, AI, law, and so much more. Whether you're a practicing veterinarian, a practice owner, practice manager, or a student studying within the veterinary field, this podcast is tailored to help you navigate the unique challenges and opportunities in the business of veterinary medicine. Every listener of this podcast is welcome to visit www.veterinarybusinessinstitute.com for additional resources and tools to support your growth. You can also subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, YouTube Music, Spotify, and other popular podcast platforms. Today, I'm honored to welcome Erica Emmett, a dynamic leader dedicated to improving workplace culture and team engagement in the veterinary field. As the founder and chief inspiration officer of FYR Consulting, Erica helps organizations build strengths-based cultures that drive collaboration, communication, and overall well-being. With a master's degree in organizational leadership and certification as a Gallup Strengths coach, Erica has made it her life mission to help individuals and teams succeed, both in their careers and in life. As a former licensed veterinary technician with over 20 years in veterinary medicine, she understands the more unique pressures of our profession and is committed to creating healthier, more engaged workplaces. Our topic today is well-being and engagement within vet teams. We've got a great topic today, and I know Erica is going to bring some fantastic advice. So let's not wait. Welcome to the show, Erica.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. You and I have had a chance to learn a little bit of each other's backgrounds. Would you mind sharing your background with our listeners?
Absolutely. And I always preface it by saying, to me, it was a very linear career, but to many, it seems zigzaggy and all over the place. So I always preface it that way. I originally have a political science degree. I wanted to be a lawyer. I moved to Washington, D.C. after college. I'm from Illinois. And I had an opportunity to move to Beijing, China, after about 3 years in DC. When I moved to China, I thought I was postponing law school, but in fact, I ended up traveling around Asia and seeing people working with animals, and went back to the one American veterinarian in Beijing who took care of my kittens, and said, I told her I want to work with animals. And she just happened to be in the need for a new assistant. She gave me a trial day where we did a mammary gland tumor removal, which is, as you know, one of the bloodiest surgeries. I loved it. And she said, "You're hired." And so for the next almost 4 years, I worked with her, and I worked at the Beijing Aquarium with the marine mammals and made toys. I was their enrichment director. And eventually I came back to the US to go to Bell Ray to become a licensed technician because my political science degree wasn't really cutting the mustard. I worked in practice for 10 years, and then I went to Hill's Pet Nutrition in sales, and then I went to Zoetis in sales. And during that time, I realized my favorite part was helping people solve problems, relationship building, empowering people. So I got into the talent development space by being a recruiter, director of talent. That's when I got my master's degree during this time. And unfortunately, my last couple of corporate jobs just had a misalignment of values. So I started my own company doing what I love the most, which is giving presentations and empowering people. And that's how I got here to FYR Consulting.
That's so amazing. And I apologize for spelling out fire consulting instead of saying the term. It is spelled FYR. Am I correct? So that someone who's looking for you can find you appropriately?
Absolutely. And do not apologize because I get 50-50 FYR and fire, and neither one bothers me because FYR kind of stood for like fire up your inner rebel, fire yourself up again. So FYR works.
Excellent. Well, let's get into the juicy bits today. I know that you really love working with people, especially in the industry. So tell me a little bit about how you perceive well-being. What does it mean? Why are we always talking about it? And how can we potentially have a more open mind around what well-being really is?
Well-being is such an interesting topic because when I started this company, I did so mainly because I started to just see my clients when I was in sales and then when I was recruiting just be so disengaged and so unhappy and constantly, clinic hopping and going from one place to the other. And we all know we walk into a clinic and you can immediately feel the culture. From the moment you walk in the door, you know whether it's a cohesive culture or not a cohesive culture, right? We've all felt it. And so that's why I started this company because I thought, people just seem unhappy in the role. And then as I started learning more and more, and I started learning more definitions of well-being, I just thought it meant, are you healthy? But really well-being, psychology today says it's your overall health, right? It's your physical health, your mental health, your relationship health, your workplace health, and even your financial health. It really all falls under the umbrella of well-being. And so in this today's society and corporations buying clinics and some staying independent and there's 4 generations in the workforce, but now we have the alpha generation starting as kind of interns. So there's almost 5 generations because boomers don't want to retire. There are so many aspects of the workforce that is changing constantly that well-being has become a buzzword, but it's always been here, right? When I was at Zoetis,
Right.
we gave a lot of compassion fatigue talks because that was one of these huge reasons why veterinarians were getting burnout. We started learning more about compassion fatigue, but it's just so much more than just I'm tired because I work on my feet and I do a lot of euthanasias, right? There's
Mhm.
so much more. There's the financial stability, veterinarians having debt, technicians not making enough. There's the society and the stress on that. And I think we spend more time at work than at home, and we really need our teams to be connected. And we can affect well-being at work, and then that well-being we take it home with us
Right.
by having a really connected, healthy team environment.
That's so true. But I'm still in practice and I do relief work and I go into several different practices. And you're absolutely right. Each one has a very unique culture, very unique feel to it. And being able to understand the overall well-being of the practice and the various members within that practice and the roles that they play, and understanding too, what are the values of a particular practice, that can really help to influence how I'm able to engage, in multiple different types of practices, and see how people really are able to work within each other. What role do you feel like practice values and individual values may potentially play a role in the overall culture of a practice?
I love that you brought that up. It's really rare to hear people bring up values when talking about culture. And I personally feel like it is one of the biggest misses for companies anywhere. You work for a big corporation, they have core values on the website, but who made the core values? Did the employees make the core values or did some HR consultant make the core values? And then Do they live and breathe those core values? But when you get to these smaller, independently owned clinics, did they ever even set core values? Most likely they didn't. And so when I talk to clinics that I work with, I'll ask them about their values and their core values. Do they have a mission statement? Do they have core values, especially the ones who have high turnover? And a lot of the independent owners don't. They don't think to do the core values. And what I told people when I was recruiting, and they would say, I'm looking for this type of clinic, I would say, what are your values? What do you look for in an employer? And then go into your interviews with that. Don't be afraid to say, this is what I value. I need trust and transparency in my leadership. And then if they don't offer that, that's not the job for you. And I recommend to veterinarians who own practices and corporations that I do team building with, I ask them what their core values are. If they don't know them off the top of their head, they don't mean anything. When's the last time you revisited them? It's time to redo it. And have your employees involved in that. It's okay to ask your employees to be involved in it and make it part of your recruitment process. Have your core values, have your team sign off on it, have them be part of the decision of what the core values are, and then recruit to those core values. Because once you believe in them, if you put that as part of the interview process, if someone says, A, B, and C, I love, but this fourth one, like, I'm not going to do that. Integrity, whatever, that doesn't mean anything to me. Then they're not the employee for you, even if they check all the boxes.
Right.
I really think that if we focused on the values of the company and the employees and the potential recruit, and we matched them just like we match the right employee for the right employer, we would have a lot less turnover and we would have more engagement. Because everybody has values inside. Everyone has core values, whether we've spoken them aloud or not. And when I started coaching women, when I do individual coaching, it's mostly women. And when they're struggling at work, their core values is one of the first conversations we have. What are your values? What do you need out of your employer? Mm-hmm. Then don't be afraid to search for the company or the employer that has the same values.
Totally. I completely understand and agree with that. And your point is very well taken. A lot of us as individuals, we feel our values, but we don't always speak or sort of identify with our values. And it's difficult sometimes when you are in a work environment that maybe is outside of your personal values and you feel that conflict. So in those types of cases, how can veterinary practices create a more supportive environment that promotes both mental health and really helps to support team members who want to feel that they are in alignment with their own personal values, but also in alignment with the business values. Obviously, a corporate practice may have very different business values than a smaller practice, and both are fine. It's just understanding those pieces. So how can an individual practice, whether it's a hospital manager or a veterinarian or a lead technician, how can those individuals support how can they support and create an environment such that that the team members really feel engaged?
I think that it's really okay for leadership to look at themselves and say, we need to fix ourselves, not as individual people, but as a leadership team, and bring in a consultant or, someone. Of course, I'm going to say someone like myself, but there are so many people out there who can help decide what framework you might use. I really love Gallup Strengths. I'm also a DISC practitioner and appreciation at work practitioner, but I love Gallup Strengths because it's for each individual, but it really teaches you how you can embrace the individuality of those around you. So right. I always say to people, bring someone in like myself. Let's do an assessment. Let's find out what your strengths are. As a leadership team, sit down as a leadership team and figure out what it is that you want out of your business? What do you want out of your employees? What's the perfect, team look like? And then do an entire clinic or entire team development where we do the assessment. We figure out where the strengths are. And you don't have to do the assessment. You can do these, just create a survey of something else. Figure out what everybody brings to the table. Where is everyone's strengths? Where are our weaknesses? How can we work together? And then sit down and redefine your culture and put it on paper. Have conversations. I worked for a company when I lived in China who wanted to redo their core values. And the leadership team sat down themselves and decided this is what they wanted to do. And then they had the entire company, and we were mixed of Chinese employees and people from other countries. So it was very interesting, a lot of diverse viewpoints and backgrounds. We had several meetings about what we all wanted individually our company to value. And then we really narrowed it down and voted. And then in the end, the leadership team chose like the top 3 core values, but it came from the team.
Right.
And then the leadership team had a wooden plaque made, they put over the door with our core values. So every time you walked, in and out of the building, you saw that. But the employees felt really engaged and aligned with it because they were part of it. Because it's different when you're a leadership team and you just come in and you say, okay, moving forward, this is what we value and this is how we're going to work. How do you get buy-in if they have no say in the matter? And I know that a lot of people will say, oh, you can't always have, this isn't, everybody has an opinion. We have a leadership team for a reason. It's up to the leadership team to really enforce that those values stay within the team. If you hire a new person and they're causing drama or they're not meeting those values, you have to have a talk, right? But you have a framework, right, as you know exactly why that's an issue, because you already have this contract with yourselves and with the employees that these are our values. So it's really, I think, okay for leadership to just look in the mirror and say, what we're doing isn't working. We have really high turnover. We have people talking about each other behind their backs. We have constant turmoil. The, front versus back still exists. Us versus them. Let's sit down and fix this together. Right. Because I think the last poll I saw, it was something like 94% or 90%. The majority of employees want trust and transparency in their leadership. That's what they want. And we all know that leadership can't tell you everything, right? But they can be transparent enough to know, like, this is what's happening. This is what we're doing. This is what we're thinking. This is why we feel the pinch of this. And just be transparent. But including your employees is never a bad thing. If you need to take a Saturday and you can pay them overtime, or do a retreat somewhere where you do a ropes course and then you do your values statement together, there really are very simple ways that leadership can get their team engaged again and bring values in. But the first step of any problem is admitting you have a problem. Right. Right. No. That's such a cliche of a statement, but it is so true.
It absolutely is. And it certainly, I would suggest to any of our listeners, don't do the trust fall. That's always dangerous. But the ropes course is a great option for sure. So give us a couple more sort of real world examples of how you help veterinary practices foster a culture of open communication and mutual support. Obviously, that has to enhance how the teams are engaging, right?
Absolutely. And so, like I said, I do DISC and I do Gallup Strengths, and I feel that They're similar but very different. For me, if an organization comes in and says like we just can't communicate, we're bickering, we're stab each other in the back, to me that's a DISC situation, right? Because it really shows how you work with each other and how you communicate with each other. And then if people just say we just kind of overall can't get along and we have a lot of turnover and this and that, I'll come in and do a strengths assessment. But what I always tell people is it's not a one and done. You cannot do anything one time and then it's just done. Right. And so if you want to bring a consultant in or you want to take the time to go do this core value meeting, you have to have follow up. And any real training and learning framework will say, what are you doing now? What are you doing in 3 months? What are you doing in 6 months? What are you doing in a year? And even for performance reviews, they look like that. So why not continuously check in? And I always have people print whatever their DISC or their Gallup strengths is. I have each person keep one at their desk. I have the technicians put theirs in the technician area. I always make a team grid and I have them put it in the common area so that when you 3 months down the line and the honeymoon phase is over, right? The communications workshop was great. We're all kumbaya high-fiving. Now it's over and we're fighting again. Stop. Take a breath, walk into the room where the team grid is, look at that person you're having struggle with, because most likely you're totally on the opposite end of the spectrum. That's usually what it is, right? The people that we often don't get along with at work are the people that were just different. And so we don't understand them, but taking the time to understand each other. And that's in any relationship, right? Your children, your spouse, your significant other, your mother. Totally other different podcast topic there. But take the time to remind yourself that we have tools for this. Look at the grid. Okay, this person has high communication and you have low communication. This is why we're struggling. And then reach out to either the leadership team, reach out to the consultant, reach out to the books that you guys bought, get some activities, add them as part of your staff meetings. And I do tell people that a lot. Please make sure to have staff meetings because as you probably know, many clinics don't. Keep your staff meetings on the schedule, have an agenda, keep it on time. Don't let people sit there and just complain. Mm-hmm. Have one-to-ones with your leadership team and each individual contributor. Don't get so busy that you cancel your one-to-ones because these are very important. People feel like they're important when you take the time to speak to them.
Right.
And then do the work. If you go on a diet or you go on a new exercise plan, you don't do it once.
Right.
Twice. You have to put in the work. And you really just have to continue to put in the work to grow your communication, to grow your engagement, allow people to express their frustrations but in a way that is productive versus, and we've probably all worked at these clinics, someone goes into the office, closed door, you know they're complaining, open door, someone gets called over the intercom to the office, everybody's like, dun, dun, dun.
Yeah.
It's not.
Like going to the principal's office.
It's like going to the principal's office. And nothing shuts down engagement more than when you think people can just go tattle. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. We want to keep diversity of ideas and diversity of personnel so present in our practices. But I do want to take a quick pause here for any of our listeners that aren't familiar with DISC and aren't familiar with Gallup strengths, or Myers-Briggs or Enneagram or, any
There's
of
so many.
Can you give like a short sort of overview of where someone can find more information on each of those potentially?
Absolutely. I mean, you can always go to my website, fireconsultingus.com. You can go to Wiley DISC, capital D, lowercase I, capital S, capital C, and it will give you all of the information about buying the assessments. And then Gallup.com has Gallup Strengths. It used to be called Clifton Strength Finders. And you can buy these assessments yourself, or you can go through a certified coach like myself. One really nice thing about if you use a coach, we're not going to upcharge for that assessment. We're really going to give you the same price or maybe a discount to buy the assessment. And then DISC is a communication style. It really tells you what your work style is. So for instance, I'm a high D and I, which means I love punctuality, but I also love to chit chat, right? And and DISC will change when your life changes. So when I had my first sales job, I was all I. I love to talk, but I wasn't really that great at like ending the talk and getting to business. Zoetis was a very difficult sales job, and I really became right in the middle, DI. And it will change with what your life asks of you. Gallup Strengths is much more of what your innate strengths are. And it encourages you to celebrate the diversity of all the people around you, especially the person you may have had tension with. Lean into them because they might be really great at spreadsheets and you're terrible at them. So instead of butting heads, how can you lean across the table and collaborate? Because they have something to offer and vice versa. But what's interesting with Gallup Strengths is that after age 26, our brain elasticity is set. So if you take the Gallup assessment after age 26, your top 10 may adjust a little bit, but it won't have significant changes. Your DISC can completely change depending on where you are in your life and your professional career. So that's always really interesting. And Gallup is all about your innate talents. It's what you do without thinking. And you do it so well, sometimes you impress yourself, or somebody else is like, whoa, how did you do that? And you're like, I don't know. That is your innate talent speaking up. And one thing I love about the strengths assessment is that they encourage us to stop focusing on where we're weak and start focusing on where we are strong. And then we can fill in the gaps where we're weak by bringing in other team members, right? We don't need to be great at everything. We need to lean into what we're really good at. And veterinarians and people who work in vet clinics are really good at being empathetic and thoughtful and kind and loving and compassionate. Not always great at dealing with people. But what we forget when we go to vet school or we go to tech school because we love puppies and kittens is that, oh yeah, puppies and kittens get to the clinic by a human. And oh yeah, all my teammates are human.
Absolutely true. Puppies and kittens don't drive themselves in, and there is always a human attached to that leash. And I think that you're raising a really good point about having the capability to play to your strengths rather than always focusing on areas where maybe you aren't as strong. Not that they're necessarily an overt weakness, but I imagine that if you have a team that has all of the same strengths, you will encounter that you have some weaknesses in some areas. And I imagine that really speaks to the diversity that you need to have within a clinic to be highly successful.
Absolutely. And it's such a buzzword right now, which makes me sad that it's such a hot topic, but diversity of thought, diversity of background, diversity of any kind really leads to innovation and creativity. And that's proven. The statistics cannot lie that it really is proven when you have different thought processes. And even sometimes if you have a team that is all, maybe they have, let's say they all fall into the same two domains. What's so interesting is that when you dive into each person, you and I may have the same top 5, but we may express them differently. So even within the talent, it expresses differently. And I think moving forward with this potential shortage of veterinarians, which now I keep reading back and forth, is it a real shortage? Is it not? But truly because of COVID, and the death rates and the aging population, we will have an employee shortage, period.
Right.
That's just the way it is. I believe in empowering and upskilling technicians, but I know that's also another topic, and a lot of some people are for it and some people are not. I believe that's really important. But I do think that we just need to find ways to allow people to be who they are and meet them where they are, but also ask teammates to meet each other where they are.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I completely understand, meeting people that have differences where they are and finding common ground creates community. And you need a strong community within a practice, a strong culture within a practice to, I mean, honestly, make the most revenue, to come up with the best ideas to improve client satisfaction, and provide even better medical care. So when we're talking about how veterinary teams, everyone in the practice, whether it's the practice owner, the practice manager, a veterinary assistant, how can each of those people really communicate when they're feeling valued or when they're not feeling valued? How do you ask a teammate to maybe put a little bit of energy into, we have a great working relationship, but I don't feel like some of my work is being appreciated. That's a really awkward conversation. But if we aren't our own advocates, both in non-veterinary life as well as in veterinary life, we don't get what we need. So how would you potentially propose that a team member who may be valued but may not be feeling appreciated really address that potentially either with the team at large or in one-on-one conversations? How would you potentially broach that topic?
And this is where I think the leadership and the team building workshops come into play, because when I do a workshop, I always have an initial meeting with the leadership team, right? And I get from them that they're buying in, for one, because you have to have buy-in from the leadership. Everything rolls down from the top, whether you want to admit it or not. And then having those conversations and asking them, when you have people who are feeling this or that, what things do you want to put into place? Well, I would love for them to be able to have a conversation first. And if that doesn't work, come to us. And then that's part of the workshop. Like, hey, we're going to say this. So when you have two people and we're teaching them the words to come together, and if that doesn't go well, they're going to come to you. You have to remember you agreed to this. You're going to sit down. This is going to be your way forward. Again, it's an agreement in advance, and then holding the leadership accountable, because they said, remember, you said that there's going to be, first we come to each other, and if that doesn't work, we come to the leadership team. There's not going to be repercussions. There's not going to be yelling. I think that's really important. Again, you have to have the leadership buy in. And I've even had, meetings in the past where it's like leadership wants it, and then they're like, oh, well, we won't be here. Just do it with the team. No, that's absolutely not going to happen, because then you'll just opt out. When there's conflict moving forward, you weren't there. You have to have buy-in, and every member of the team needs to hear you say, yes, moving forward, if you have an issue with her or him, let's first sit down and use your words, like remind yourself, hey, I'm really high communication, yours is low, I'm having issues with this, using words that aren't like it's your fault type of things. But then if that doesn't work, who on the leadership team is going to be the mediator? We've already agreed to this. These are agreed frameworks we've put into place. I don't know if you have ever heard, when I was researching to talk to you on this podcast, AHA has a healthy workplace culture initiative. Have you heard that? Oh
Yes.
my gosh, it's amazing. And it's not just for healthy workplace culture, but it also gives you tools to keep your clients loyal, right? Because it teaches you how to deal with your clients and respect your clients. It's all about making money in the end. We know that. Yes, it's patient care, but we all need money. We live in a capitalist society. All has to be about the bottom line in the end. But I really loved that initiative. And I wrote the website. It's just at aha.org.
Mhm.
Anyone can go to it, the AHA's Healthy Workplace Culture Initiative. And why not download that for all of your clinics? If maybe you can't afford a workshop initially, or even bring a consultant in and ask them to use parts of that framework because now it's online. But it's not rocket science, but you do have to have buy-in from leadership, and you have to have your leadership in the room with the people. Look them in the eye and say, "We're going to do this together." And if
Yeah.
I fail as a leader to do what I say I'm going to do, you're able to come to me and say, "This is what you said we were going to do, and it's not happening." And you have to be held accountable, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to manage up.
Right. No, absolutely. It's definitely something that no one feels comfortable sitting down with their boss saying, "You're not doing what you said you would do," or "I understand that things are busy and we're working so hard, but this was the agreement that we had."
Mhm.
So it doesn't feel good, but it still has to happen, right?
Yes. And my husband used to work for EY, and when they had performance reviews, they set performance reviews for their managers as well. So they managed up.
Mhm.
And I think not enough companies do this. And in a vet clinic, of course you don't, especially if it's independently owned. No one is managing up, but sometimes you need to. You have to hold the practice manager accountable. You have to hold the DVM accountable, but not in a way that's accusatory, right? Just a gentle reminder of, we agreed to do this and now it's not happening. And then just a quick side note, when I said the word practice manager, I fully believe every clinic should have a practice manager and help them towards the path of CVPM, give them the skills and the tools and the CE to be a certified practice manager.
Mhm.
Because when I started, the person who has worked there for 30 years and does inventory, and now she's the office manager, that's a lot of pressure for one person without any training. And so I really think it's important for clinics to have true practice managers who are trained in how to deal with employee relations.
Yeah, that practice manager really does become sort of the entire HR department, and having the right tools in the toolbox. It would be like trying to do surgery with half a surgical pack. You've got to have the right tools in the toolbox in order to be successful.
Yes, and upskill, upskill, upskill. And just like AI will eliminate jobs. But if you have good employees, if you know they're going to be eliminated, upskill them, right? If you have a CSR who's excellent and she wants more or he wants more, upskill them, give them a promotion, make them a team lead. Don't lose employees because it's too hard to give them something else, or you see them as an only. And having been a technician for years, the word "I'm only a" drives me crazy,
Hmm. Hmm.
because you're not ever an only a.
Yeah. No, that's so true. And that's true no matter what role you hold in the practice. But it's also true in life. None of us are only a single thing or a
Yes.
single characteristic. And we can all grow and change and evolve, especially within our veterinary communities. So I want to thank you so much, Erica, for joining us today and talking to us about well-being and engagement within veterinary teams. We certainly appreciate it very much. I also want to take a moment to thank our listeners. We appreciate each and every one of you. We cannot do what we do without you. If you like our podcast, which we hope you do, kindly share it with your colleagues and friends on social media. Also, please don't forget to leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your reviews will help us with our other listeners to really make sure that they can find us and we can provide the best information. We always welcome suggestions on topics with the reviews as well. So until next time, keep striving for excellence and making a positive impact in the lives of your patients and pet parents. We wish you all an amazing week ahead. And again, Erica, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. It's been a great conversation.
Wonderful.